Hi there, I'm Taylor Carey, and this is a short introduction on wakers that can be used on hands and feet, and savers also can be used on hands and feet. They're part of the Yamuna Body Rolling system. And when we work on our hands and feet, it's very important to figure out how to connect the ends of the chain. So I would say point at my fingers and point at my toes all of the way back up. So if you're feeling like, oh, I want to do something to exercise my hands, I want to feel strong again, I want to get more space and flexibility. And then you get into the wrists, which oftentimes people are saying to me, I'm feeling like I've got a little bit of wrist pain or maybe a little repetitive stress. We also want to connect up to the elbows, to the shoulders, and then also into the neck. So very basically what we're doing is we're opening space at the end of the chain. So today we're going to just start a little exercise and try to see what it feels like to open up the wrists. And then we want to get all of the way from the wrists to the fingertips, which we can use both of these on. So I would tend to, in general, because this work can be fairly strong, I would tend to want to say you want to err on the side of caution. And why that is sometimes it will feel like we're doing something really spectacular as far as putting weight into an area of the body that's been feeling like constricted or maybe inflamed. You don't want to push hard, okay? And so first things first, I would encourage you to do a little bit of what I'm doing. I'm doing some touch and tell anatomy. So I've got my one hand, I'm touching onto my wrist bones. So there's the radius, that would be the inner bone. This is the ulna. And when I hold here and I just do this movement of flexion and extension here of my hand, what I'm getting is I'm getting a feeling of range of movement. So sometimes if people are coming in and they're saying, I've been using my hands a lot for texting or keyboarding and everything's feeling stiff and I'm having a very difficult time getting full movement, I might say, why don't we just take a little bit of a test? And I would say, put your hands flat out onto the table. So if you were like me, lucky enough as a kid be able to play piano, what I would do is I would go for a full octave. And that would just mean just get a stretch between your baby fingers and all the rest of your fingers. See how far apart you can get them. And then how much of this part at the palm of your hand can you get to touch the table. So this is before, all right? We're going to do a before, we're going to do an after. And what I'm going to encourage you to do is even when you're sitting at your kitchen table, you could do this. I would be in the seated position right now. And then when you stand up, you can see that I can get a full extension and get a feeling of the length that's going to go all of the way up my arms. I'm also getting this test. So this is touch and tell anatomy. We're getting the test on rotation and ability to get these movements. I might even just test how does it feel to get my hands onto the table. Now, if I had a little bit wider table, I might actually take my hands right there. So if you've got your hands right underneath your shoulders, you're getting forward fingertips out to the side, then into the inner. And you might notice, so I'm noticing already on this screen, I can see on this left arm, I kind of have a little bit of a thing going on here. If you have an ability like me to go into hyperextension, don't let yourself do that. And so this is looking at all of the chain of the line. Can I get length from my head, neck, and shoulders all of the way down my arms to my hands? And what does it look like when I go straight ahead, out to the side, to the inner side, and how does that feel? Now, another piece of this is you might, if you've been to the physio, if you've been to the physical therapist, you might actually even see how does it feel to get this movement. And this can be a very big challenge. So I want to just caution you again. How does it feel to get this kind of movement of pulling your fingers down toward the floor when you're opening up your arm? Oftentimes when we're doing these repetitive things, we are lifting things forward over our heads into the cupboards. We're doing a lot of this keyboarding in the front. So all of these movements, what we're thinking about is we want to get this length. We want to get open through the wrists, but we also want to get all of our structure to stack properly. Okay, so it's not that we want our shoulders here and we're not going to do the exercises. You can see I just lifted my shoulders, I pushed my head forward. But you could see when I was demonstrating, these are the kind of moves that we want to get onto. All right, so let's add a little piece. You might have found already these are really nice stretches for you. So if you've had repetitive stress, oftentimes what will happen is to give your body a rest, the doctor or the physio will give you that wrist bracelet to hold you into a position that's very narrowing for the bones. Now, sometimes we do need a rest and it's nice to have this, but long term, this can be very detrimental because as we do this, I'm just going to do a little demo with my body here. If you're feeling like you're pulling up and in, oftentimes people say I've got shoulder thing and then I've got numbness from my neck and then I'm sleeping. The holding in place here so that my hands can't actually pull back is feeling like it's supporting me. But long term, we want to get this full length back and we want to get open again. So as we feel that, when we get happening with these wakers, I'm going to put them onto the table here. So again, if I were seated in a chair at my dining room table, I would be bringing my hands forward. And as I said earlier, this is one of those forward positions with the hands. We want to be able to move our hands in all directions. Sometimes people will come and they'll say, I can't get my arms back this way. Everything kind of is forward on me now. So if what's happening is you are working in this hands forward position, you could start here by sitting on your chair. And what I'm doing is I'm actually taking that dome right at the center, at the palm of my hand. So again, there's my hand. I'm moving my wrist. I'm moving my hand. This thinking is, okay, and you're going, why is she doing that? We want to create a little arch. And we want to start opening up these carpal bones. So in my courses and all my videos, I actually have diagrams of all of the bones, how they come together. I'll use Howard's hands and we'll talk about these carpal bones right at the top. And what we want to do is we want to open everything up right on top of this dome so that what we can do is we can get a feeling of getting bone deep. Now again, it's not that we have to push hard, but we do want to get full extension. So you can see me, I'm going for that octave, pulling through my fingers. I'm really reaching and I can feel it stretching already. And that ball, when I'm done, it's going to imprint these little dots on the first couple of inches of my palms of my hands. Okay, so it's not right way in the center of the palm. It's right at the top, just beside the wrist. I'm going to come upwards. I'm going to come onto my knees. And as I do this, I'm going to reach my fingertips down to the table. And as we advance, we will eventually get to the floor. We could do this quadruped. It really is going to depend on your strength. And what we want to do right now is we want to feel how it feels to put pressure down, okay? And at the same time, get a feeling that we're actually lifting the bones up. So even if you just put one hand onto the waker, put that pressure, reach your fingertips out, and then with your opposite hand, get a feeling that you're lifting through this wrist at the same time that you're pressing into that waker. And as you come up the arm, you can see I'm just underneath my elbow. I'm going to encourage you to follow along. Maybe watch this demo and then try this again. I'm going to take my hand above the elbow. I'm going to come all of the way up. I'm actually going to put my thumb underneath my arm. And as I do this, I'm feeling, again, touch and tell anatomy. Really, I'm really big on this. You might feel, oh my, just below the elbow, just above the elbow, it feels a little bit inflamed, or it might just feel really structurally congested. When I push around here, I can feel the origins of the muscles and the insertions into the bone. And what I'm going to do is with this other hand, same thing. So here's what I want to say. We are not aiming to push down with all of our might and open those bones. We are intending to lengthen that arm down. If you've got that little bit of extra bendy elbow like I have, that hypermobility, you can keep that elbow a little bit bent. You're going to take the other hand, you're going to put it right onto the arm bones above the wrist. At the same time, there's good solid pressure. So you can see I'm feeling for the octave, feeling for my fingertips to the table. I've got some pressure enough that I'm going to have that little imprinting of those dots. They hurt a little bit, but hopefully in a good way. And as I come up this arm, I'm getting the sense that, you know what? There are muscles in here that are feeling really tight and really taut and kind of thick. And as I come up, it's kind of hard for me to get that lift to come up. So just feel into here and see, can you kind of hold on to your bones? You're tractioning upwards at the same time you're pressing downwards, okay? So this is, if I were there with you, I would come and I would get my hands onto your arms. I would give you that information. Then I would say, with your elbows a little bit bent to your sides, with your fingertips all the way out, you're going to bend forward. And you can see my shoulders are pretty much directly over top of my hands. And as I come down, this is very lightweight into my hands. What I want to do is I want to get the feeling that when I press or bear weight into the top of that fulcrum and I breathe, can you see how my arms have just straightened? I'm really lifting the whole core of my body upright. And as I do this, I can feel a stretching and a lengthening all the way down my arms into my fingertips. So let's try this another couple times. So bearing weight down a little bit, bending in. I'm taking lots of weight onto my knees. So if you were standing up at your kitchen table, you would be onto your feet, and then you would get this feeling of really, really lifting up. You would have these balls really right close to the front of your body. Let's do that one more time. And just a little bearing weight down. And then as you press down, it's like we're opening those bones. Can you see my fingers and my thumbs really reaching? And getting that lift, I'm going to take my shoulders up and away to see if I can lengthen that whole line of musculature as I open up the bones all the way to my fingertips. So you'll see, if I hold this up, you'll see there are definitely little dots all along into the hands. And as I do this, when I kind of reach and do these little, you could do a little flossing, so you can see fingertips one way and then the other. I'm doing opposing movements. All of these movements of opening out to the side, they're going to affect you from the hands all the way up to your neck. So let's see how it goes if we do another couple of different turns on this. And these are all of those movements. So if you are doing with your thumbs and with your forearms, these internal movements of texting, can be gardening, it could be mousing, it could be just in general working around your home and your hobbies. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our fingertips so that they point towards each other. Now these domes, you want to have them so they're shoulder width apart. We're going to put the tops of our wrists into, or pardon me, tops of our palms of our hands into the domes. And if you tend to get them, I have these a little bit into the palms of my hand, but just think about this top half. Depends on how big your hands are. Top half, top third of your hands, closest to your ribs, your wrists. And as soon as I bring my fingertips toward each other, I can feel it's doing something different to the chain. So if you have been forward with your shoulders, try pulling them back and down. Put that pressure into your hands. You're going to bend down a little bit. You can see I'm really not putting a lot of weight into my hands. I'm just getting all of the lines softened, and then I'm going to lengthen the line of musculature. And as I come up, I can feel I'm pressing down at the same time. I'm pulling my shoulders down and away from my ears. And let's do that again. Bearing weight down, elbows to the side. Keep breathing. Really get the octave. Get the fingertips all of the way far away from the thumb, away from the wrist. And one more time. Bearing weight down and getting that lift up. And take a rest. Now, I'm going to, like I say, err on the side of caution. This is going to be just this short intro video. We're going to do one more move. We're going to take it out to the sides. And it would be in a perfect situation. I would have a wider table here. But I'm going to do this here. I'm going to just hold my fingertips as if the table is a little bit wider. And as I do this move, I'm going to just bear weight down, really opening through the front of my shoulders and pressing up, getting the lift through my spine. And I can inhale and exhale. You might do it in an opposing direction. It doesn't matter, just as long as you keep breathing. Inhaling and exhaling. And just feeling how it feels, just to keep getting that lift. One more time. And see how that feels. And just notice if it feels, when you start moving, if it doesn't feel a little bit lighter. So with this, you might say, hey, that's kind of great. I can feel that there's more mobility in there. It feels a little bit like, hey, that is a useful device. Again, you might notice tomorrow you feel a little bit more. It's going to feel different. So I don't want to encourage you to do too much too fast, but I do want to have you figure out how to feel for these different carpal bones. So this next piece has to do with the saver. So I do recommend that you get both sets. These ones are a beginner. We open with space. These ones get a little bit more advanced. We can move bone with them. We can be very specific. And just know all of these things that you're feeling through the wrists, and I talk about up the arms into the shoulders, there's going to be tension all of the way to the tips of the fingertip. So what I want to do just for today is just to be able to feel the difference between wakers and savers and how you can very quickly open up your hands and wrists. Is what I'm going to have you do is just kind of like you're doing a little bit of a karate chop. I've got my finger right here between where the bone of the arm bone and then the top of the hand bone. And what I'm doing is I'm just feeling for that space. And as I feel for that space, I'm just taking this hand right on the very edge. So I'm going to try and take this little saver. I'm going to try and divide. Okay, so I want the hand bones to go forward. I want to find this place right at the start of the bone, so we're actually into the joint. And as soon as I do this, I'm not quite at center. I'm a little bit out to the side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that same thing that we just did. Is I am dropping my baby finger towards the floor, and then I'm going to roll inward. Now, as we do this, when you come up, you might go, oh my gosh, that's really sharp, this little bone, these pisiforms, and there's just a number of very different pea-like size bones here through your wrist. When you put pressure, here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. I'm going to encourage you to lengthen through your thumb and through the opposite side of the wrist. And as we do this, what's happening is that little half dome is coming just onto the outside edge. And as we do this, when I take my fingers and thumb to the floor, I'm not going to let this inner wrist drop inner. Can you see what I just did with my elbow? I let everything drop in. I let my shoulder come forward. So what I'm doing is I'm actually trying to find that very back corner, and I'm trying to open up the bones of the wrists and see how that feels. As I do that, I make sure I've got my hand, shoulder, and elbow all connected. I'll do the same thing with this second side. The hand comes a little bit to the outer side, so not quite at the right at the top of the dome. As I fold inward, I can feel, wow, that feels kind of nice. And if you've got one hand or wrist that's giving you more trouble, usually the people come in, oh, it's my right hand, I'm right-handed. Or somebody might say, I've got a left shoulder injury, I can feel it all down my arm. It doesn't really matter, but as you do this, you want to have these equal. You want to find the outer. You want to come forward. You want to get that same feeling. And this time you might go, oh yeah, I can sense. Because this dome is smaller and more solid, when I come down and do pretty much that same move, as I come up, I can feel I'm really leaning into the bones. And once you've done this 1, 2, 3 times, you can hear me really exaggerating my breath. I'm exaggerating, making a working breath. And once I've done that, I might go, that feels so good, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm noticing if my thumbs drop to the floor, if my elbows rotate in, if my shoulders are coming forward, that this is obviously an exercise that we're trying to open up, and we're trying to realign our bones so that when we start moving again, boy, my wrists are feeling really nice and light. Now, if it feels like there's inflammation in there, you might just start with the bigger size balls, and you might not go into these smaller. But just let me show you one last piece with this, because these domes, we can go all of the way from the wrist, all the way to the fingertips, front and back of the hands. Yeah, it's key that you work on both front and back. But this one, I'm going to get onto this scaphoid bone. So again, if you are joining the course or you got that, just know that these charts are going to show you the scaphoid on the inner or the thumb side is one that you want to get onto. It's very common. When people fall off their bicycles or take a fall, it's one of the most commonly broken bones in the body. So if you've had a challenge with it, you can see I'm getting really particular with this. What I want to do is I want to get right underneath the inside. And as I do this, again, just like I said when we did the outer side, don't let your outer drop. Don't let that get kind of flaccid. Put the pressure down. And if you've been getting this, now here's that bend and the pressure up. As soon as you get on this bone, it just feels kind of spectacular. I've had quite a number of people coming in saying, you know, I think maybe I'm injuring myself doing some of my exercise. So we don't want to be causing any injury. We just want to notice where are you really tight at the end of the line. So what I notice, I've got a very repetitive stress mousing pattern in my right hand. And what I notice is when I put pressure onto this thumb side, I can feel that my fingers want to come together. So if this, and again, this is very common. It's kind of like this is a real common bone to break. This is also a very common movement. Anybody who's crafting, sewing, anybody who's using thumb to index finger, this is going to get very, very tight in here. So keep your wrists up. So you can see as soon as I do that, wrists up on the outer and the inner, shoulders down away from your ears. Take a breath in. As you bear weight down, you're coming down and then you're lifting up. Now, if any of this is causing you pain up the chain, you don't want that. You want to get the feeling that you're getting just enough weight down. You might just go then to one-handed and you might just go, oh yeah. As soon as I lift up here and I do that little movement, it's remedial at this point. This is remedial. We're not putting so much pressure down, but we're getting that length and we're getting the feeling that we really want to get this lift. Now, this is that piece I want to say, people exercising, injuring the shoulders. If you've been doing yoga for a long time, I'm a long-time yoga teacher, over 30 years, and what I'll see is people wanting to do that chaturanga dandasana, and what's happening is they're collapsing inward from their daily work, and then they're coming in and doing the exercise before they've got the structure open. And so as we do that, it's part of a sun salutation. We think we're doing something really great for ourselves, but it can really be aggravating shoulder things. This work, the foundations of the hand, are really a big part of what's going on through the structure of your arms and shoulders. If you've got pain up into your arms, if you're really, really thick and you can feel how thick and challenged, and sometimes your arms just feel like they ache, that you can't get that feeling of opening through the musculature, just know, starting with the hands and fingers, heading up the arms, and understanding what is it the musculature is doing and how it's aiding your body, and you're doing these things in life, what we need to do to take out those extra movements that we've been doing. And when I say extra, it's like how many hundreds of times have we done the keystrokes? How many thousands of times have we done these different movements? And what are we doing to reverse that? So once you've done this, if you come back with your hands onto the table and get a feeling of what's going on here, you might notice something's starting to straighten out. Even if you come into these moves and getting that breathing going with your hands flat, you might notice, hey, something is starting to change. I can feel that different things are starting to move. Just remember, we're working bone deep, and we're wanting to have the signals and the information run all the way from the fingertips to the shoulders, and then finally into many of these nerve roots that are going through the neck, and they'll be connecting and opening and hopefully healing. If you're having a lot of repetitive stress pain, this is just such an easy, fast way to get yourself out of it. So that's it for today. This is super beginner. Give it a try. If you've got the gear, great. If you're waiting for it, if you're waiting for your order, we'll get it out to you really quickly. And we do have hands, feet, and face foundations that go along with our body foundations course. Thanks so much for watching.